You're welcome back. And on Samson's Take today, we are familiar with the Bagri Dam. It gets spilled annually. We actually expect the spillage from Burkina Faso. And for many years, we have had leaders who promise that they will take advantage of the spillage for our prosperity, agriculturally, and for purposes of electricity power. That remains a mirage. The spillage rather kills, destroys farms. A senior citizen, a very patriotic one at that, who is also employing many Ghanaians, shared his frustrations with me over the spillage of the Akosombo Dam because it's overflowing. It is spilled and the water passes through irrigable land into the sea. On the back of that, I repeat Samson's Take, titled The Curse of Leadership in Africa. Live and know that Africa is rich in natural resources ranging from arable land, water, oil, natural gas, minerals, forest, and wildlife. The continent has 40% of the world's gold and up to 90% of its chromium and platinum. The largest reserves of cobalt, diamonds, platinum, and uranium in the world are in Africa, with 65% of the world's arable land. This means Africa ought to be rich, not the symbol of poverty and underdevelopment. It must feed the world and never be faced with hunger and starvation because Russia is at war with Ukraine. Ghana's economy must not collapse because of bombs thrown in countries millions of miles away. The little of the wealth that is exploited is stolen and taken abroad. Africa's leaders grow richer while their citizens seek greener pastures abroad or die starving. They go abroad cap in hand, borrow so much, and in Ghana, $3 billion is unaccounted for each year. Africa's youth, with a chance to get an education in Europe and China, are helping build their economies. Ghana does not produce even 1% of the millions of tons of poultry it consumes. The Africa Union's Agenda 2063 and the similar ones before this don't reflect beyond the paper they write these goals on. Mo Ibrahim reports that in 2017, 53% of surveyed members of extremist groups in Africa were between 17 and 26 years old when they joined, and the offer of employment was the most frequently cited incentive at the time of recruitment. In 2015, 86% of all African educated physicians working in the US were trained in Egypt, Ghana, Nigeria, and South Africa. 1 in 10 doctors working in the UK comes from Africa. In that year, 2015, doing a documentary for the BBC, I found, shockingly, that Ghanaian doctors in New York alone outnumbered the total number of doctors in Ghana. More than 60% of Africa's population is unenergetic youth whose leaders have spent decades, generations, promising them heaven and delivering them hell. Will Ghana spend money on the 6th of March to celebrate independence, or the fact that it is still independence? Instead of thinking of an agricultural revolution, for example, and jobs, we are busily building a cathedral on the foundation of lies at a time when the government says it cannot pay you your debt because it is broke. Some clergy who have lost their faith have joined politicians to lie that the state was not spending on rental accommodation and new buildings to relocate judges. They lied. They lied through their teeth that judges' bungalows that were being flattened for the cathedral were dilapidated, when in fact the majority of those bungalows were less than 5 years old, while others were even yet to be completed and were being constructed with loans, your money, taxpayers' money. They even lied to the Supreme Court that state funds will not be used, only to turn around to tell citizens the state will only provide an unquantified seed money. Religious leaders who must be the voice of reason, speaking out and pushing back against corrupt politicians, have lost their voice. Those of them who, like Esau, have sold their faith and conscience for a pot of soup, a brown envelope, or board membership, deceive themselves that people don't know why they join their president to call the taxpayer some godless, rebellious Tobiases and Sambalats. Chairperson of Transparency International, Delia Rubio, notes that, quote, corruption has made our world a more dangerous place, as governments have collectively failed to make progress against it. They fuel the current rise in violence and conflict and endanger people everywhere. The only way out is for states to do the hard work, rooting out corruption at all levels to ensure governments work for all people, not just an elite few, end quote. Dr. Randy Abbey puts it this way, quote, every country that has a large and growing army of people who have nothing to lose is a country that is facing danger, end quote. Please be reminded of the preamble of the Constitution that this democracy is built on, quote, the principle that all powers of government spring from the sovereign will of the people, and that Article 1 commands that, quote, sovereignty resides in the people in whose name and for whose welfare the powers of government, the powers of government are to be exercised, end quote. You will have no need to caution the military about anything if you pursue the instruction in Article 36 that, quote, the most secure democracy is the one that assures the basic necessities of life for its people as a fundamental duty. The curse of leadership in Africa must end or will spell our doom. And that is my take. A Newsfile is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Bank of Africa, as strong as a group, close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go, a Chelsea University educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 solid years. Europlus, producers of quality PVC and HDPE pipes and water tank. Where Europlus goes, water flows, definitely. DBS Industries, roofing, fie. My Way Insurance, My Way. Dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex Tanks, it's strong and it's tough. Flamingo Paints, simply superior. Snit Seed, self-employed enrollment drive. It's your future, so own it. Best Brain Public Education. Tomorrow, education today. Let me introduce my guests. Dr. Sribo Kwaku is Director Electoral Services, Kwaku, Director Electoral Services at the Electoral Commission of Ghana. Good morning, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, my brother.
Dr. Clement Abbas Apak, MP, Bolso South, and Deputy Ranking Member, Education Committee and Member, Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament of Ghana. Suleiman Abrahima is Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. And Kofi Bento, lawyer and Senior Vice President, Imani Africa. Also joining us, Bobby Banson is a lawyer and author of legal texts. Welcome to all of you, and let's begin with the Electoral Commission and what it is doing. As you know, this morning, the limited registration exercise is ongoing. And fact, there has been a groundswell of pleas and protests requesting of the EC to listen and expand the centers from the 268 of its district offices to the 600 plus electoral areas. The EC calls the bluff of everyone. The NCC, the coalition of political parties, the CODEO, the NDC, chiefs even. This morning, they will tell us why their position is superior to everyone else. Because what they are doing, obviously, to many, including myself, doesn't make sense. The indignity that citizens are being put through, the cost. In some places, people are having to travel over 120 kilometers to the center, meaning they will spend a day or more queuing. And when the devices have failed to work or the queues are too long, they may have to spend another day getting accommodation. Which of the EC officers and these politicians who support this will allow their children or family to be put through the indignity that Ghanaians are being put through just to get on the voters' roll, which is their constitutional and fundamental human rights and obligation? To some, the conduct of the EC smacks of incompetence, which Article 146 provides grounds for removal of Jean Mensah or her deputies. We will deal with that. Now let's watch what has transpired in the course of the week.
We can see from the other side that bursting of people is becoming the order of the day here, and I don't want that to happen. We are dialoguing, ensuring that those who are doing that should put an end to that, or else that can generate a situation that we will not be able to at least handle it. It will be challenging for sure. If you are not coming from this place, if you are a man or you are here, yes, we challenge you so that you come and improve subsequently.
In 90% of the stations across the country, no such printout was given out to political parties. Now, most centers across the country started after 8:30, when I believe the advertised time was 7. For instance, just a sample of some of the district centers and the time they started. In Savannah, Bole started at 9:30 a.m. Greater Accra, Odudu here, not far away from the EC headquarters. They started at 10 a.m. The same Greater Accra, Okankwe South, 10:31 a.m. Ablekuma West, 10:40 a.m. And as at the compilation of this report, Biakoye has not started at all. In Hohoi, 9:10 a.m., there are a lot of system malfunction throughout the country. Registration at some centers is not going on as at midday due to challenges with machines and network. Sanerigu network system breakdown. Suhum machine breakdown. Bolga East system lock-in and webcam not functioning. Tamale North network and machine breakdown. Lower Manya Krobo network breakdown. Tamale South machine breakdown. Tamale Central machine breakdown. Elembele machine not network. Given the fact that the district offices of the EC are not suitable for use as polling stations on election day, the decision by the EC to restrict voter registration to its district offices is not only unreasonable but unlawful. Also, given the long distances that many eligible voters will have to travel and the exorbitant fares they will have to pay to transport themselves to district offices of the EC under the excruciating hardship Ghanaians are presently confronted with, the decision is insensitive, unreasonable, unlawful, and unconscionable. This irresponsible and unconscionable decision of the Commission confirms the NDC's long-held view that the Jimensan-led Electoral Commission is determined to rig election 2024 through voter suppression. But she will fail because we are ready for them.
Right. So Dr. Serbo Kwaku is here. He's very busy because, as you know, the process is ongoing. I'm going to start with my guest on Zoom, so he will hear what your positions and your complaints may be, and then hear from Dr. Clement Apak as well before he will be the last to speak and take care of all your concerns before he will move out to proceed with the process. Let's start with Suleiman Abrahima. Now, what do you say? The EC appears to suggest so far, let me not try to speak for them. Sometimes when you appear to, they are doing the right things and you say they're happy. When they are doing things that people are not happy, you say it. Some of them take it personal. That's not personal. On this platform, I do my job. Now, so what do you say? There are people who have had to queue in the night. We have seen footages of people who have had to get up very early at dawn, 3 a.m., and they are queuing up. As we speak, some of those footages will roll on your screen for you to see. Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa has taken journalists to his constituency, North Tong. We have seen how the people are cut off completely from the registration center. They have to, get on the sea, on the whatever it is, boats. And he's helping to provide life jackets to assist as many that can go there. So political parties are spending. The EC says, why? They buzz people. They should buzz people. Parties should buzz people for them to exercise their constitutional right. Is that it? Those around the villages, around the voter lake, they say they have to pay at least one person 100 Ghana cedis to reach the EC's district office. And because they are going to a place where they may not be known, they need to take along guarantors. So if you're taking 2 guarantors, you pay for them. Some of the parents say, our youngsters, they're too young. We can't allow them to go through all of that. What do you say?
Well, Samson, good morning and good morning to colleagues on the program as well as our viewers and our listeners. Let me start by saying that in the last couple of months, conversations within civil society, within multi-stakeholder actors, within bilateral organizations in West Africa has all been centered on the democratic backsliding that we are witnessing in the region. The coup d'etats and all of that. But even beyond the coup d'etats, we all have witnessed developments that point to the fact that increasingly people are losing confidence in democratic processes as a form of governance. And conversations so far have been about how do we really counter this ongoing phenomenon of democratic backsliding. It is important to highlight the fact that when we talk about democracy and whether it is working or not working, it is not just about how governments are run and whether people who are elected are doing what they have to do in terms of running the countries in a way that benefits all, or the issues of corruption, citizens' non-participation, and so on in governance. When we talk about the democratic processes, it includes, the entire processes that people get to elect their leaders, and after elections are conducted, how leaders are governing their states, and so on and so forth. In our country, just as everywhere, the electoral management body, in other words, the Electoral Commission, plays such a fundamental and a crucial role in enabling our democracy. In other words, how the EC behaves and conducts their affairs and the mandate that has been given to it can, in one way or the other, undermine our democracy. In the last 2 weeks, I have put out statements saying that, look, I hope that our Electoral Commission would not, through these actions, sort of bring our 30-year democracy to an end. We saw what happened in Gabon after an electoral dispute, where people believed that the EC didn't do what it ought to do in order to ensure fair play. Again, let me highlight the fact that only 2 days ago, a global study was put out, a survey of some 36 countries around the world. And significantly, these countries included Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, and I think Senegal in Africa. Now, the findings for me is quite revealing. Whereas you find almost 75% of persons who are older than, 35 years and above saying, look, we think democracy is the best form of government. When you come to people 18 to 35, the percentage reduces significantly to just about 52%. In other words, young people on the continent are increasingly losing hope in democracy. And in this particular voter registration process that we are talking about, we are predominantly talking about young people who just turned 18 and above, and perhaps a few others who were 18 as at the last registration exercise and yet couldn't register. The question to ask is, why do we want to put a price on the fundamental exercise of civic rights to vote? Why must people endure the pain and the price to be able to register? Why should we make people's willingness to participate in the democratic processes so painful, so difficult, and so expensive? I honestly believe that if Madame Jean Mensa was still in the civil society space, leading IEA as she was before her appointment to become the EC chair, I'm sure, and I have no doubt, she would have perhaps been our chief spokesperson on this matter of condemning what the Electoral Commission is doing as something that really undermines the democracy that we are growing. Because invariably, we are just making it so difficult and so expensive for people to get involved in our democratic processes. And again, over the period, one of the things that people have highlighted is the whole loss of confidence and trust in our public institutions. How do you build trust with this kind of conduct that the EC is putting out? Why would the Electoral Commission, which is a national institution, basically refuse to listen to everyone, perhaps apart from the governing party.
You don't know what
Because-
the EC knows. If it says it is capable of registering the estimated 1.4 million Ghanaians within the 2 weeks, what's your problem? 3 weeks, what's your problem?
Well, so if they say so, are they talking about the capacity of their machines? Are they talking about the number of staff they have? Or they are talking about being able to bring the folks who have to register from Hwehwe to Mempasem to the villages of Nakpanduri and Bunkrugu Yoyo to the district capitals? If the arrangement was such that the EC is saying, look, for every community, we are providing buses across the country so that those who are eligible to register and those who would have to accompany people to go and guarantee for them can have free buses to and then back to their communities, perhaps we would have said, okay, the burden is a bit lessened. But
The political parties are always interested, and they would always bus people. So the EC says, why not? Assist us, bus your people in. And people also in this country need one form of identification card or the other for some purposes. If you are spending, say, 500 Ghana to get an identification card, what's the problem?
Well, that's the problem. The first problem is that is if you have the 500 Ghana cedis.
I meant 50 Ghana, not 500. That's too much.
50 Ghana. That is if you have it, Samson. That is if you have it. And if you don't have it, what is the price to pay? The price to pay is that you are excluded from the processes of voting. Look, from the ECOWAS level to the EU level to the AU level, there are ongoing efforts to ensure the inclusion of young people in Africa's democratic processes.
Why don't you wait? Why don't you wait to the end if the EC has not been able to cover all that need to be on the roll to complain?
Well, that is on the basis of the assumption that we know the total number of people who are eligible to register. We don't know. We can basically estimate and look at, okay, over the last 2 years, we estimate that we'll get this number of.
Okay.
But Samson, assuming it is even possible for them to get the numbers, we are talking about the pain that people would have to go through to be able to get their names onto the voters register. I don't think that this is the way to build our democracy. I don't think this is the way to get credibility and public trust that the EC so much requires and desires. I don't think this is the way to build on the progress that we have made. And the earlier the EC started listening to people and listening to voices of conscience, the better for all of us as a country.
Right. I'll ask the lawyers about this. You said the pain and the cost that people have to go through, whether they have any objection to the fact that people have to go through a bit of cost and struggle and pain to get their voters registration done, and whether that also has any constitutional implications. And I just picked my constitution. I'll ask them whether they think this provision of the Constitution also applies. Article 15.1 says the dignity of all persons shall be inviolable. Is there in any way that the dignity of the Ghanaian has been reduced because they are being made to go line up? They will line up and vote anyway. That's all the politicians are interested in. But Kofi Bento, Sule just mentioned Jean Mensa, who used to give us a lot of data, research data that we use for CSO work and also for media work at the IEA as the head. I've had the privilege of working with her also before at the IEA in the presidential debates. In 2016, and I understand in 2016, when the EC was doing this exercise, it deployed the electoral areas, that's 6,000 plus. This was the complaint by Mrs. Jean Mensa of the IEA. He gave an interview to a number of radio stations, Adom, City FM, and the rest of them. And this is what she said. I will say that to some extent, it has gone very well, and a number of people have been registered. However, we followed the process quite carefully, and we are also aware that there are many others who would wish to be registered who did not have the opportunity And I know that we have said it will be proper that we do not disenfranchise people who are willing to vote or cast their vote for the first time. We have indicated that if resources will allow, it will be important for the EC to extend the registration exercise to allow those who are really keen and those who are serious to vote. We have called for an extension of 2 more weeks, and we believe that any serious person who really wants to be registered will really have the opportunity to do so. I think that will ensure some peace and give some credibility to the process. She continues, if we look at the proximity of the various centers, and this is instructive, if we look at the proximity of the various centers where the registration is being done, it makes it very easy for people who are within a locality to go to their areas and register, whereas if they go to the EC, for instance, that's the EC's district offices, for instance, to register, they may end up voting in a particular constituency which may be far away from where they live. I think that it is a great idea to have the continuous registration process, but I am not sure how convenient it will be for someone who lives in Weja and who has to come all the way to Ridge. That is the Office of the Electoral Commission to register, unless the EC's offices within various constituencies are localities, and localities will be open to allow that. I am not sure whether that process has been formalized. We are yet to receive any notification from the EC as to whether that process has been formalized. We are actually yet to receive a notification from the EC whether the continuous registration process will be effective. Jean Mensah, then head of the IEA, executive director, now EC director, speaking. Kofi?
EC chair.
EC chair.
It's interesting sometimes when we bring up the history like you've just done, because as we lawyers say, it's on all fours. This is exactly what she was talking about when she was a civil society person, our sister in arms. And since she left us, I have to say, I consider her still a good friend, but she has changed. We all have this hope that the values we hold, the principles we hold will follow us, and that when you get into the position where you can actually effect the things that you've said, you will not become what you have ever criticized. And it's unfortunate that over and over again, we get disappointed because Jean Mensah, the one who said what you said, is today the one doing the direct opposite and not even giving us the respect of explaining herself. But let's leave a person out. Now, it is beyond the issue of dignity. So dignity is actually a constitutional issue where any public officer does anything that detracts or allows anything to be done. This is the law on which pan latrines were banned.
That's right.
Where a public officer allows things to be done which detract or remove or reduce the dignity of a Ghanaian, it's unconstitutional and actionable. That's one. That's allowing. Now, where you are not just allowing, but you are the one actually causing it to be done, that is commission. You are actually guilty of causing that. That's a very serious matter. And it is entirely arguable that what Jean Mensah and the EC are doing is acts of commission using state resources to cause people, okay, to act in undignified ways and to, affect them in all kinds of ways. Then beyond that, look, Article 42 of this Constitution makes use of the word rights, that you have a right to vote. And we've had cases like that where one person stopped the whole voting process. Right. I'm saying all these things because they are serious.
The Ayimensahs of this country, the Tenades of this country.
Tenades, there's a lot of rights. Then beyond that rights, on the issue of registration, it says entitled. An entitlement is a fundamental right. You are entitled. When you stretch the entitled, what it means is you can sleep in your house and ask to be registered. which is why, as a country, and some of us have been part of this argument for many years, that at the time we started doing voter registration, we did not have the necessary institutions to make that a normal, continuous process. So after 30 years or so, we have come up with the National Identification Authority. You know the arguments and the fight we've had. We've spent millions of dollars and many years. We have today in this country a system that is capable of giving effect to the entitlement to register, such that when the person hits 18 years, that entitlement can be given effect. It's self-executing. So that once he has a Ghana card with his date of birth and everything on it, and he hits 18, it is automatic. The person can opt out of it. But the system must give effect to the entitlement and register. What I'm saying is that Jean Mensa and the EC today do not have a constitutional reason why they should subject this country to even an elections or a voter registration arrangement when we have the National Identification Authority. They are a commission. The NIA is an authority. In law, there's a difference. Okay. So to then wrestle to yourself something which constitutionally you should not have. And one of these days, we are going to have to go to court and have these things sorted out. But in any case,
you know, the EC was in Parliament seeking to be given the opportunity to do the process of registration and continuous registration using the Ghana card as the sole identifier. The reason that is botched now is because suggestions for it to allow for minor changes, an amendment, because at the time he wanted to implement it, there were a good number of Ghanaians who didn't have their cards. As we speak, they still don't have them, and there were financial challenges to the producers of the card. So you can't really blame them on that score, right?
No, I remember, and honestly, it is my view, and if we have time, I'll argue that out very well, that the EC did not need Parliament to authorize that process. They didn't need Parliament. Look, Article 45 says that the Electoral Commission shall have the function to compile. It never said they should go and register people. In the process of compilation, you might register. But again, a commission in the hierarchy of authorities is less than an authority. All right? Now, so the National Identification Authority is higher in order than a commission, number one. Number two, it is an electoral commission, not a registration commission. So to that extent of registration or compiling of register, if even the NIA was a National Identification Commission, because it is specific for identification, it will have a better legal authority to do registration and that stuff for EC to use it. Okay, but it is an identification authority. My argument is that 45 requires the EC to compile the register of voters from the list of the NIA. You don't need Parliament to do that.
All right.
And what we said was that at the time, all the money that was being wasted by the EC, you remember the last election cycle, we took them on several levels. That should be used to empower the NIA so that at the end of the period, when there's time for election, they just draw it. Whoever is 18 period, you go with your Ghana card, they put it in a machine, it can show your age, A, B, C, D, E. So back to the point. It is entirely arguable that the EC doesn't have the mandate to do what it is doing. If it takes somebody going to court to sort it out, we'll do it. But the point I was making is that I have gone to court. I have won a case that the EC should publish accounts of political parties. It's been many years now. They've refused to do it. And it means I have to go and try to do execution. So people are just
as for winning cases against the EC, exactly. And it not doing what the court has said. Let's not get there, because you know that I have done a similar case like that in which we cited them for contempt. My client cited them for contempt. The court spared them. They came and pleaded that they should be given extension of time and they will lay a constitutional instrument for the implementation of the diaspora votes. Well, here we are.
Same story. So something to finish my point. See,
right.
When you are a state institution and people use the law, take time, expense, and go through the legal process, and we obtain orders against you, but you refuse to let the law work, you make resistance, unlawful or extrajudicial resistance, inevitable.
Kofi, we are in the process. What can the EC do at this point? Is it your suggestion that even while the process is going on at the 268 districts, It has a room to listen to the various calls and expand the process. And remember, as you compared it to the authority, the EC is a constitutional, independent constitutional body. So that is far above and ahead of the authority. So what's my question? What should they do now, practically?
Well, what they should do is simple. Take exactly what Jean Mensah said in those years and apply it. Exactly, word to word. One, they shouldn't have done that, but that conversation, we should have it. Like I said, Emmanuel stressed himself about it. It wasn't taken up. We are back here. But we should have that conversation. Right now, what they should do is use all other means to effect people's right to register.
Okay.
6,000 different centers. You can do it in any way. But restricting is actually taking steps to stop people or prevent people, okay, or compress on that right. So all the EC has to do is actually stop resisting, okay, the advice of Jean Mensah when she was a civil society activist. Just open up the registration, let people register, and just do your work well. If you listen to some of the problems that they were having, equipment problems, this and that, after spending millions of dollars, it seems like somebody really has decided that we're going to have an accident.
Let me take your mind briefly on this, because that has become another angle of the discussion. We have heard, significant persons, even in the media. We have heard Randy Abe, we have heard Titus Glover, Nana Akomia, Kwesi Pratt Jr., Professor Kwekwaza, the rest of them. They are pained at what is going on, and they say it's a bad treatment of the citizens, and they have denounced the EC's conduct, including one particular statement by Dr. Eric Bosman-Asare that voting is not by force or compulsory. So what's the big deal, really? Some say this particular conduct, where if you take Article 45E, it says the EC shall, that's mandatory, undertake expansion of the registration of voters. This is not expansion. It doesn't help. If you take the CI 19, CI 19 regulation 222, I think, says that when it is designating the centers,
191, not 19. CI 191.
CI 191, thank you. When it is designating the centers, it should consider the suitability of the place it is designating for the registration for a polling station and the accessibility of that place to people. They put all these things together and say, why not? In this circumstance, we can activate Article 146 and seek the removal of those commissioners, including that comment, because that is misbehavior, incompetence, or inability to perform your office arising from infirmity of body or mind. What do you say?
I totally agree. In fact, I've opened 19. I was going to make the same point that you made, that they are under constitutional injunction to expand, undertake programs. So there's omission and commission. Where you are set up and financed to do something, not doing it is grounds for removal. Now, in this particular case, omission and commission, it is not a matter of just omitting, like they are not doing anything. The suggestion is that there will be problems with people exercising their right to register. The EC was set up to take away those problems, clear the way, and create situations that will enable people to register. So they should actually do things, commit actions that will expand registration. In this case, if you're not doing it at all, then you are omitting to do your job. But as far as I'm concerned, they are actually taking steps, committing actions to stop people from registering, which is directly against what they are doing. Okay? And for me, it's nefarious. It is the use of state resources to defeat the ends of public policy. And to the extent that my own brother Bosman, vents it, he voices it, he speaks these things, which are quite reckless for somebody at his level, it is sufficient grounds, and I will not be surprised. I will not be surprised if somebody takes this up and says that by virtue of things you have done to restrict registration, actions you have taken to disenfranchise people, you are not fit for your office. I don't see how that will be resisted if that issue comes up. So look, we should all be minded when we do some of these things. And look, we are trying, like you're saying, Sule said, we've run this thing for 30 years. We've come to a point where we need to start refining, the edges and then making things better. But you find people with a tendency to try and create situations that more or less set us back, and we endanger this democracy. Look at what is going on all around. We have a lot of young people who have not seen a coup before, and they look at what is going on and they ask themselves, why is this a better solution? We should try something else. And all of us keep advising them that, no, this is the best we should do. It is actions like what is going on now with the EC and other places, okay, that give people a certain sense that, well, if you're not going to do the right thing, we might as well throw it away and try something else. They should do better.
Thank you very much.
Obey the law under which we were set up.
Thank you, Kofi Bentil. Now, Bobby Banson, when an officer of the EC says this is not compulsory, so to speak, do you also take that, including the conduct so far, can be grounds for the one of the three grounds that the Constitution sets out in Article 146 for removal? In Tenade, indulge me. There's good research. I don't think I should allow it to go waste. In Tenade, the Supreme Court unanimously held that the EC could not refuse to register Mr. Ade. It ordered the EC to register him. Then the court said that the right to vote is a constitutional right, and that you cannot qualify it. You cannot qualify it. The EC cannot qualify it, and it cannot deny a citizen of that right. But it went further to say some things that I need to share with you. That right to register and vote, or right to register, is not only for the purposes of voting. The court said, and this is the Supreme Court, it said that there are significant disabilities attached to non-registration. For instance, one who is not registered is disqualified from being a member of parliament, number one. And one who cannot be an MP is disqualified from holding many public positions, including Minister of State. A member of the EC becoming president, becoming vice president, becoming a member of the Public Service Commission, and a member of the National Commission for Civic Education. The court said these disabilities are onerous and that the EC has a heavy responsibility under Article 45 to ensure that all eligible Ghanaians have exercised this right to register. What do you say?
Good morning, Samson, and good morning to my seniors on the panel and your viewers. I was actually, or I've been, should I say shaking, listening to all the views and all the things that have been said concerning this exercise. I was actually hoping that Dr. Shribo would have spoken to try and let us attempt to offer an explanation as to why they have chosen the route that they have. Because like you have said, in line with what has been accepted, if you take Article 45, I'll rather start from 42, which is the Tenhadi emphasized it, that every citizen of Ghana above 18 of sound mind has the right to vote and is entitled to be registered. And so the registration exercise, which is in line with Article 45, I think A, to compile the register of voters and revise it at such periods as may be determined by law. And so obviously read in consonance with the LI, it seems to give the EC the discretion. But discretion, as we know, once it's given by law, cannot be exercised capriciously or arbitrarily without taking into consideration the interest of those that are entitled to benefit from the exercise of that discretion.
In fact, in Tenade, the court said the EC should desist from arbitrary, unreasonable, inflexible registration procedures that disenfranchise eligible voters.
exactly the point I was driving at. And so
It should be inclusive rather than exclusive.
If you look at Article 23, and then if you look at Article 296, it states there very clearly that once you have that discretion to exercise any power vested in you in this context by virtue of Article 45, it should not be done in a manner that would be capricious or will not be beneficial to those that are entitled to, or that are intended to benefit from the exercise of that discretion of that authority. Now, from all the evidence that we have before us, it seems that this may be the first time, at least in recent memory, that the Electoral Commission has decided to restrict the voter registration exercise to very, very few centers. I do not know why that they are doing that.
They've used this before, except you said recent memory. So you go on. The EC boss is Director of Elections is here. He will help us with some explanation to that.
Yeah, in recent memory, in the sense that in 2016, I don't think that they used, because you read the statement
by them.
So if we are supposed to be progressive, and then in 2016 we open up the centers with a view of making it more accessible, because civil society and people had complained the manner in which people end up being disenfranchised because they did not have the opportunity to register due to all the limits that come with it. Then it seems to defy all reason and all the efforts and all the gains we have made in such attempt, or in an attempt to bring the democracy to the doorstep of those that are entitled to participate in that process, by limiting it. Like perhaps maybe the EC has reasons, that is why I'm saying that I'm here to hear, which may in the long term allay all the fears, because as it stands now, tensions are very high, because this is a very critical election. Both parties, or two major parties, and all the parties that are interested would want to be sure that their supporters are not disenfranchised. Now, what I was thinking of throughout this process is the role of, is it IPAC they call it? Whether or not the Electoral Commission discussed this process thoroughly with the members of the IPAC.
So they report that it was discussed, but it was not conclusive, and that the EC had told them that it will hear from them. The next thing they heard was the announcement and advertisement.
So that was what I was going to, that if the EC wants the IPAC not to be just a mere rubber stamp, but is supposed to garner consensus on some of these very sensitive and essential democratic exercise, then they should be respecting the views, legitimate views of members of that IPAC. Because if these views were handled, or these things were handled at that level, the EC addressed the concerns that were raised by, because the persons that have sued the EC are members of the IPAC, or supposed to be members of the IPAC. I'm not sure if the NDC has gone back to join or participate, but if these things were addressed at that level, and what was rolled out satisfied all these concerns, we will not have this hula baloo about this exercise, which will now affect the credibility of the Electoral Commission. And as we are seeing, even the credibility of the officers of the Electoral Commission, comparing to what they have said in the past. And it doesn't augur well at all for our democratic dispensation.
Okay, so deal with this, about this with us, and then you can take leave of us. We understand that your time too is very critical to you right now. So the 5 political parties filed a writ in the Supreme Court. Unfortunately, they couldn't get a return date for an injunction application, but subsequently they got it. I think that is now slated for the 17th of October or so. I suppose they would have served that on the EC by now. Then 2 individuals also issued originating processes in the High Court, and also got filed injunction applications, which they have served on the EC. The EC appears, from what we have seen so far, to have ignored the pendency of those applications and started the process. we understand that there is now a process of contempt that is being pressed. Educate our viewers and listeners. Was the EC's hands stayed once it received the injunction application?
Well, I think there are two processes that you are speaking to. You are speaking to the Supreme Court process and then the High Court processes. That is my understanding, that the High Court processes where the contempt has actually been subsequently filed. I, without prejudice to the outcome of the cases, and again, without prejudice to the full content of the affidavits that supports the applications, I believe that it is now settled in our jurisprudence that once an application for injunction to restrain a party, whoever that party is, from carrying out a certain act or restraining you from undertaking anything, once that injunction is served on you, you are required by law, by precedents, because we know justice is dispensed in accordance with case law. I believe the case is Republic versus Moffat also.
Yeah, Republic versus Moffat and others. And the essential part, you quote it in your book as well. I quote, the judge said, I would be laying down a very dangerous precedent if I were to hold that a party, when served with application for an order of prohibition from the High Court, that's injunction, can disregard or ignore the said application and treat the court with contempt, quote unquote. That's Justice Saban, 1971. This is the precedent you are referring to.
Yes, and it's been referred to in other cases. I believe the whole idea is that once you are served with the application for injunction on notice, and your actions will be deemed to have deprived the judge the opportunity to pronounce on that injunction because you have done what you are being restrained to do, thereby rendering the application for injunction moot. You have interfered with the administration of justice because you have now taken the law into your hands and then proceeded to act as if you are the determinant of that application for injunction. And so obviously, if that was satisfied, then it means that the Electoral Commission would have flouted the law. The only, and may be liable for contempt, the only issue in this instance, and there's a decision by, I think, Sir Justice Dennis on that aspect, is which officers of the Electoral Commission will now be liable for contempt. That is the procedural angle that would have to be looked at, because it's been said.
I thought we had gone beyond that. In this case, it will be the commissioners. In my practice, when I needed to cite them, I cited all the commissioners, and they couldn't object to that.
Yeah, that is why I'm saying that it becomes an interesting scenario. That is, I have not seen the application for the contempt.
Okay.
That has been served, and so the officers, and then they prove that
it is citing Jean Mensah and two of the deputies. Eric Botsman Asare and Mr. Tete, that's the name, right? Yeah? Tete, Mr. Tete.
Yeah. And so it would want to see how it ends up being played in the court, and then the EC federating or going on with this registration exercise. I believe that with all the views that have come up, the EC would do a lot of service to Ghanaians. Without any political colorization, if there is some consensus on this, to ensure that at the end of the day, what they intend to do, carry out their constitutional mandate, is done within the contemplation of the lawmakers and to the benefit of those that are supposed to benefit from it.
Right. And finally, and very quickly from you, what I refer to as a face-saving thing that they have done, I think last night, their lawyers, as in lawyers for the commissioner, Dr. Eric Asare Bosman, and Mr. Samuel Tete, have written to the lawyers for those who are citing the EC office commissioners for contempt, saying that they are waiving the personal service so that they can hand the documents to the one who is delivering this letter to them. This has come about after a couple of days of some dramatic scenes at the Electoral Commission offices, where without a doubt, you can see that they are just running away from being served. And so they are not allowing bailiffs access to come to the premises and serve their officers. Some say this is very bad for a public institution treating a court process in that manner and court officials. What do you say?
Well, I have followed on media, both social media and mainstream, the drama, as we call it, when it came to serving the EC with this contempt application. And like you said, last night, a letter has been written. I have a little bit of challenge. I've not seen the letter and the processes again that have been filed before.
Yeah, I've seen the letter, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, but you know, there is a provision in the rules that required that states that a lawyer for a party may write and ask for processes to be served on that lawyer.
That's right.
On behalf of the party. It's in the rules.
Yes.
Now, before you are deemed to be a lawyer, you must have entered appearance on behalf of that party, so that the record will show that you are a lawyer for that party. Now, if you have not seen these processes, you will not be able to have entered appearance. And the letter that was written should be directed to the registry of the court, not the lawyer who files the originating processes, because that lawyer is not the one to effect service. It is supposed to be done by the registry of the court. Now, seeing that this is contempt and it's a quasi-criminal matter, I do not think it may be there in the rules as to a lawyer asking that the registrar should serve. But I think that the practicality of it is very challenging, because this is a criminal matter, and the persons who have been cited for the contempt are required to be personally present in court. And more or less, any processes that are filed in response by means of affidavit in opposition must be filed and deposed to by them. And so if there is indeed evidence that there are attempts to evade service, I think that the lawyers may be, just for the avoidance of doubt, may want to apply for an application to serve by substitution and even make reference to that letter that was served on them by the lawyer.
Oh, but you just referred to the rules, which you are very conversant with. Order 7, Rule 12. Let me read Order 7, Rule 12. Order 7, Rule 12, 2 says, where a lawyer undertakes in writing to accept service of a writ on behalf of a defendant, the writ shall be deemed to have been duly served on that defendant when served on the lawyer. This is what they are saying. Bring it to we the lawyers. That's okay. Stop going to their offices looking for them.
Yes, that is what I'm saying, that the rules provide that means. But then it becomes interesting if you have the situation as in the lawyer has not entered appearance yet, because the definition of a lawyer is somebody who is on record deemed to be the lawyer for a party.
I get that.
The rules. And so I believe that you must have entered appearance first on the record. And that undertaking is addressed to the registrar of the court, not the lawyer who filed the process.
But if someone elects and says, I am the lawyer, then you should presume that they are the lawyer. I think that's the case here.
There are reported cases in this country where a lawyer entered appearance. I think on top of my head, I can refer to Barclays Bank versus Ghana Cables, 1996, 1997. A lawyer entered appearance, participated in the process. Summary judgment was obtained against the party. The party came back, went to the Supreme Court and said he was in jail. He never instructed the lawyer. And the court set aside the processes.
Interesting.
And so yes, even though it is doable, the rules accommodate that. I mean, it's because of the peculiar nature of and sensitive nature of these things.
Because there's a potential prison term.
Exactly.
That is a potential prison term if it is found that they are actually guilty of contempt. Thank you very much, Bobby Banson. Bobby Banson is a lawyer and also an author of legal text, civil procedure in Ghana. Thank you very much. So Kofi and Suleimana, you may have opportunity to ask Dr. Eric Kweku some questions when Srimbo Kweku some questions once he begins to take his turn. Should we hear you before him? Because I heard from what's the name, Bobby, that it may be useful to hear from him first.
I think that I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
Because in fact, the earlier submissions sort of summarize some of the thoughts I had.
Thank you. So thank you very much.
I would only have to decorate them.
So tell us why everybody is wrong, including myself. Tell us we are all wrong.
Good morning, Samson, my younger brother, and my brother Apak, and good morning to everybody, including those people, the other panelists on the Zoom. First, the Commission has been mandated by the Constitution to perform certain functions, and the Commission has no choice but to obey or to perform such functions. If the Commission does anything contrary to what it has been mandated to do, then that becomes antithesis. And I wouldn't want to know the word that to be used for them, because the main purpose of your being is to do certain things and you decide not to do it. But before I proceed, I want to say that for the media and the CSOs, your attention is register them. That is the focus of the media and the CSO. And probably that is maybe the reason why maybe you are quoting my chair. At that time he was CSO. But when you come into the kitchen, that is where you see that your responsibility changes. The thinking of the Commission is that it is to register people and also to protect the sanctity of the register. That is very, very important, which nobody is talking about. You are going to compile voters' register that will be used to determine who leads Ghana in all fronts. What goes into the register should be something that should not be, that can bring about issues. If you remember, in 2016, there were a lot of issues about the sanctity of the register, a lot of demonstration, what have you. The Commission insisted that what we have could be used for the election, and it was done. And you read that even those people who were even fighting the register were the people who benefited from the register because they won. In 2020, when the Commission decided that we were going to compile new voters' register in the midst of COVID, there were a lot of issues, including the social media, everybody saying that we use it. But the Commission knew that register is not good enough for the election. We compiled the new voters' register within 38 days, and we were able to conduct elections, which almost everybody sees it as the best in the history of our country. And I also see it that way. So it comes that we wanted to compile, we wanted to develop control station, which everybody is talking about, including you, Samson, that we should do that. So the question I want to put across is, if we are to roll out the continuous registration, where would the registration be taking place? Clearly, it will be taking place in the districts.
If you are to roll it
when
out,
we roll it fully...
Which you have not.
Yes. No, but this one is part of the continuous registration.
You're supposed to have rolled it out since when? The law was made in 2016,
2016,
right? Mm-hmm.
Yes. But 2016, we did some small form of continuous registration on the 19th, 26th, and 27th at the district offices. That is 2016, which maybe we have lost sight.
At the time, the current commissioner doubted that continuous registration.
That's what I'm saying, that when you are out, it's different. But when you come and you see the issues on the ground, now you are mandated to protect the register. Somebody wants to pour it, put water on it, But when you come in, you said the water capacity at a certain level, you cannot continue to pour water.
So your point is that protection of the register is as important as registering the people.
Exactly.
And that is a justification to make someone travel 120 kilometers to the center to register. Okay, go ahead.
You come to appreciate what I'm saying.
All right.
So the Commission will normally sit down with its internal directors, whoever, after people have been given all forms of advice, then say, how do we implement the policy? Say that all those who want to register will be registered, and also we will protect the sanctity of the register. So last year, 2022, we decided that looking at the situation, and in 2016, as we were saying, the control legislation was in it. But we realized that looking at what is in the 2016, if you are to implement, we may have challenges in terms of sanctity of the register. So we said, in that case, why don't we come up with new CI so that all the possible loopholes that can be used to infringe on the sanctity of the register is taken off, which the basic one is the continuous registration. So we said, okay, let's come out with a new CI that will take off the continuous registration, so that will be, and even the passport, so that everybody is talking of Ghana card, so that you get a Ghana card and you go there to register. The opposition to that intention was that not everybody has the Ghana card, but we were coming from the point that we have more than 2 years to go. NIA has given a promise that they will be doing continuation as we also do ours. So, and they will all be done in the same district offices. So you go to left, which is the NIA point, you register, you come to B, which is the electoral committee point, then you come and put your name on it. That's why we have not done this registration up to this point, because we were still thinking that we will be able to push through. But we read that from the look of things, we cannot. And we have election to be conducted this year, which is this level election. So why don't you open the register for those who have turned 18 to register, so that you can compare the update the register for this level election. Then in 2020, all things being equal, you might have gotten the support of all those who are taken against the new CI that will go, that you can roll out for the whole year up to the time that we'll do the general election 2024. So our intention now is that we are revising the register to give those who have turned 18 years who want to take part in the district level election to get opportunity to register. So that next year we can now roll out fully the continuous voters registration.
What stops you? What prevents your capacity and competence at protecting the integrity of the register if the voting process is brought closer? In other words, from what I'm listening to you, you are saying that people must suffer the indignities they are going through. They must
use those words.
They must suffer cost because of your inability, and that is being nice about it, or your incompetence. They are being punished for your incompetence.
Thank you very much. Anybody in the Electoral Commission knows that the farther you are from the district office where you have the main database, the more it is prone to abuse. And I believe you are aware that a lot of people who are already on the register are again going to register. So when you go like that, there are three possible reasons. One, either you are computer ignorance.
Okay.
That you are already registered, so you are not supposed to register again. Or your intention is to maybe have a new card because you might have lost the card, or you have relocated, so you want to register so that you will not go to where you registered to vote. Okay. So, and in all these three, there are illegalities. You cannot say that you are a registered voter, you want to register again. And the challenge is that if you do not register online, it means that you may succeed in registering again at wherever you are. Then when the data is now fixed into the database, there will be duplication the rest. That's why your name will come up. And the challenge which anybody in the document doesn't want is that the moment you do that, you have been blacklisted. You can never vote till the register is disposed of. Till the register is disposed of. Or a court gives judgment on the commission.
So you are protecting some voters who are likely to double vote.
That is one. That is one. Because I would say that the more you...
Why should it be your job to protect someone who is doing the
Don't forget, I said
unlawful
ours is to protect the sanctity of the register. And when those things come in, it is our responsibility to clear those things from the register.
But
and you need days.
But the authority under which you are doing this exercise is the CI 91. Is that not so?
Yes.
And the CI
91 is CI 126.
Okay.
No, 191, 191.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
No,
CI 91.
CI 91, good.
And I refer to Regulation 2.
Yes.
Regulation 2 is headed Registration Centers and Electoral Areas.
Yes.
2.1 says the Electoral Commission shall, that means you have no discretion in it,
Yes.
shall designate registration centers for the purpose of registering voters. So you have to do that. Then it says, may designate any place it considers appropriate as a registration center. Any place it considers appropriate.
Yes.
But it fetters that any place. That any place is not at large. So the lawmaker comes to say, in designating a place as a registration center, the commission, once again, shall, you have no choice about it, take into consideration, A, the suitability of the place for use as a polling station on election day. B, the accessibility of the place to prospective applicants for registration. What do you say if many who are complaining say, you are not following this, and this is what you are supposed to follow according to law?
If we say a place should be suitable for voting, is that what it is?
Yes, for a polling station.
If you go to most of our polling stations, you see that mosque, a church, and the rest, it doesn't mean that it should be done inside the mosque. So if you're saying you are doing in our district office, if you're doing joy here, in front of joy could be used as a polling station. So any of the district offices could be used as a polling station.
Is there a history of using your district offices as a polling station?
Whenever we are doing limited registration, we use them. And some of them serve as polling stations.
So for the times that you use the district offices, you also use them as polling stations?
No, when we do the limited registration, we don't go to polling stations.
Okay.
We do them at the district. But when you come, you are assigned to your polling station.
What do
so
you
you are not registered and put at the polling station,
okay.
at the where you are doing it.
Thanks for that explanation. What do you say to those who say they have to carry guarantors from wherever they are, and that even the people at the EC district offices, they are people who live around there, so they can't even help the process? Those who are supposed to help you, the party agents, help you to say, this person doesn't come from here. They can't do that because someone is coming, 80 kilometers away to your center.
You see, when you have a right, you also have a responsibility. We appreciate the concern everybody is putting across, but given the circumstances we are in, if we want to open it up, go to half a police station, they are committed out. If you look at even 2019, we did it at our district offices, plus some selected, distant or difficult to reach areas. So when you do that, you need about 2 months to come and clean the register. You need about 2 months.
Yeah, but that's your job. That's not my
job. That's why I said give him the job.
So you don't punish them for that.
No,
do you realize that? But for the political parties, busing some of the people, some of them, those people, a good number may be disenfranchised. No, because they can't afford to come to your center.
If you talk disenfranchising and whatever, it doesn't come in. Because I will say that this one, we are doing it in a limit form in such a way that we can compare the list for the election.
All right.
Next year, we are going to roll it out for long, and we will then go to the inaccessible areas and the rest. So it's not that we finish with this, that is the end of registration. We are going to roll the details out in terms of fully rolled out control registration, where we can now identify all the challenges. We are the people on the ground.
So you do not intend for this exercise for the 3 weeks to capture all those who have become eligible since 2020?
It's not possible.
That's not what you are seeking to do.
Not possible. So what we are rolling out is that we want to cover as many as we can, and depend on those who can make themselves available. But some of them we may want to contest. So let's take advantage of this. But when we finish with this, next year you roll out more detailed registration, which will cover difficult to access areas and what have you. Okay. So we are not saying that everybody should be registered this time around. No, we are not saying so.
This concern that Jean Mensah raised in 2016, is it still applicable today? He said, they may end up voting in a particular constituency which may be far away from where they live. So she said, let me begin the quotation. She said, if you look at the proximity of the various centers where the registration is being done, it makes it very easy. And this is because you are using electoral areas, 6,000 plus. It makes it very easy for people who are within a locality to go to their areas and register, whereas if they go to the EC, for instance, to register, they may end up voting in a particular constituency which may be far away from where they live. Does this apply today?
At times you may make a statement because you don't have the full facts of the story. And I don't know the circumstances under which this statement was made. But what I'm saying is that once you compare the general list, you don't go to the polling station again.
Okay.
So you do it either the electoral area or the polling, the district offices. And in each case, somebody will have to incur transport. If you want to do at the polling station, some polling stations are serving about 4 or 5 different villages. So in terms of cost and convenience, you cannot completely rule out. But when we are doing limited or control registration, the emphasis is purely at the district offices. But that's where the system...
Because that is what you have determined should happen.
That's what the system...
That's not what the law says you should do.
No, that's what the law doesn't define
exactly
how it is. But it says that we shall determine.
That's right.
It said the system in place, it says that it's like you cannot... It's difficult for you to be on Newsfile without being within your building. You agree to that? It's difficult. I'm not saying it is not possible.
Okay.
It's difficult. Because when you want to do Zoom, there was several times I've been trying Zoom and we don't succeed.
Okay.
If you want to have continuous registration, then the focus will be at the district offices.
All right.
That is how we want to do. So based on that, and we are dealing with people who are coming from communities who probably are even being supported by their parents. So what the advice you give them is that let your parents inform you of your polling station before you go to where you're going to register. If you don't have any parent, the people within your community, ask them, where do they vote? If these two will fail, then you come with your, your residential address. And that address will help you to locate.
Do you realize that by what you're saying, that your intention is not to capture everyone who is eligible and needs to be registered now, means that you're going to disenfranchise some people from participating in the district level elections?
You are probably misquoting me. As all those who want to take part in this is what we are opening up for them.
Everybody wants to.
So go and register.
But you clearly are aware that what you are doing does not allow that. Because that is not part of your intention.
Our intention is that all those who want to take part in the district level election, this is the time for them to register.
All those who are eligible to register to vote by this time, by your estimation, are how many?
We are targeting, that should be about 1.35 based on the statistical data, yes. And we know that it is not possible that everybody will register. It's not possible. So, but all those who want to register...
But your job is to offer the opportunity. For those who don't, that's their business.
Maybe, I don't know, you are taking me back. I've said that we have made this facility to all those who want to take part in the district level election. That's what I said.
But you know clearly that by your own plannings and calculations, this process will not capture each and every one who is eligible to register to vote. And therefore, you have been arguing that there is going to be continuous registration after this one, which means you are seeking, by what you are doing, to exclude some people from voting in the district level elections.
What we mean is that there are some people who may not want to take part in this level election, but will want to vote in the 2024 election. That you cannot rule that fact out. It is there, right? So we're saying that if you are interested in this level election, we are giving you this facility. Go and register and vote. But if you are thinking of taking part in this level election, then you can wait for 2024. Then you take part. I remember you started by saying that some people register if not to vote. Is that not the case? So if you are registered not to vote, then wait so that you can have time when it comes closer to your. So if going to the district office is your challenge, then wait. Okay. But we believe that anybody who wants to register, you have the right, but you also have the responsibility to move.
Let me see if my other guests appreciate you better than I can do. Yes, Dr. Park.
Well, Samson, let me say good morning to you and my co-panelists, and to say it has been long. I know the people of Buta South are watching. Of course, they expect me to be home by now, helping to mobilize, prospective voters to go and vote. Samson, let me be honest in saying that I have been very impressed with the level of the discourse and the very probing questions that have come up so far from all those who have spoken. That actually makes my work easier. And I say so because the conversation and the discourse ought to be taken out of the partisan realm to look at it from a national perspective. And I think that is why the current posture of the EC in terms of the way it is seeking to dispense its responsibilities to the people is drawing such attention and disagreement. I have listened to, Dr. Sibo Kwaku here, and in many ways, the arguments he is actually making invariably reinforces and gives credibility to the concerns that almost every other stakeholder in this republic has raised with regards to this exercise, which they are refusing to concede. But the commentary so far from him confirms that they are not doing things the way they ought to do. And you see, let me read again Article 42, because I think it is very important, and we ought not to run away from the content of the Constitution, because that is the law that we all look up to, which should guide our conduct, both as citizens and as institutions created by us through our Constitution to deal with the electoral processes. What does Article 42 say? Right to vote. With your permission, as we do in Parliament, I must seek the Speaker's permission before I read. Article 42, right to vote. Every citizen of Ghana of 18 years of age or above and of sound mind has the right to vote and is entitled to be registered as a voter for the purposes of public elections and referenda. So we've spoken about rights. He made the case that rights come with responsibilities. And I don't argue. I think that is tried knowledge that we have all accepted. But you see, the framers of the Constitution didn't just leave it there at rights. They spoke about entitlement. And I think that is significant. Earlier commentators made the point, and I think Kofi Bentil in particular, dwelt a lot more on the inclusion of the word entitlement. And for the avoidance of doubt, just look at the basic definition of entitlement. It says entitlement, the belief that one is inherently deserving of privileges or special treatment. Inherently deserving. So what this means is that the Electoral Commission has the mandate and is enjoined by the law of the land to ensure that citizens, once they meet the minimum threshold in terms of being 18 years and above and of sound mind, are able to register at their convenience in a manner that is not going to dehumanize them and call their dignity in question. What this also then means is this. All of the issues that have come up so far, which we know are militating against the right of the citizen to enjoy this right and entitlement, ought to be addressed. And look, I am a rural MP, and I can give you practical examples from our constituency of Busa South. You played some clips, you saw a national chairman, he made allusions to some of the challenges on the first and second days. I am going to speak to you as somebody who is both bearing a cost and who is also worried that even in spite of that, I am not able to mobilize the needed young people in my constituency who should be registered to register because the Electoral Commission is being unlawful. Honestly, because if you look at the law, the CI, the Constitution, the mandate of the EC itself, and the right to vote, and the fact that one is entitled to be registered to vote, you juxtapose that with the EC's posture and what we are being told. The EC is breaking the law, the EC is being lawless, and in fact, the EC is acting contrary to what the framers of the Constitution intended it to do. And I think...
I was hoping you will have some questions for him.
I will.
Because that is important.
I will, very quickly.
As to how this right is such a sacred right, our courts have affirmed it.
Very well.
I have personally argued before our courts, and they have accepted that this is not just a constitutional, it's a fundamental human right.
That is
what
the point.
That means is that it is a right not given to you by the state. It is your birth right.
I agree.
That cannot be taken away from you. And Chief Justice Wood emphasizes that in the judgment in which they said even prisoners must have the right to exercise.
Fair and good. So that is settled, and that is a right. But look at the practical aspects of it and why this continues to be an issue. As we sit today, my constituency is a very rural constituency, very vast. You have communities like Bachongsa, like my own village of Doninga. Our district capital is Fumbisi. From Bachongsa to Fumbisi is 35 kilometers. The roads are terrible, atrocious. In this rainy season, we are farming folk. So people are also busy trying to do what they always do, is to cultivate and ensure that they are able to survive for the next year. To say that an 18-year-old should go from Bachongsa 35 kilometers and to pay in and out 32 Ghana cedis to Fumbisi to go and register to vote, clearly it's a disincentive. And I'm being honest.
Nana Komia argues that even this constituency of his, which is in the center, he still doesn't get the sense in what the EC is doing, because people have to pick about 2 different cars to get to the center where they should vote.
That is the point.
They should register.
That is the point. So when we speak about voter suppression and the possibility, real possibility, that eligible voters are going to be disenfranchised because of the variables militating against easy access to access this right.
He says there's a window.
These are real.
He says there's a window. After this process, limited registration, there's a window of the continuous registration up till we are
you
go for elections.
See, I disagree. And you raised that point, and I thought his explanation, for lack of a better word, was flimsy. It really was not grounded in any logic. It is your duty to register eligible voters. It should not matter what the quantum of eligible voters are, whether they are the estimated, I believe,
about
1.4 million or more. That should not be the case. And you see, this is where I have a problem with the Electoral Commission and in particular the commissioners. They seem to have the penchant of imposing their understanding, their interpretation, and their perspective of what is a challenge and what is not on we the people who have the constitutional mandate to enjoy the right.
But you don't
decide. Wait, I'm coming.
They are not fair.
You don't decide. You don't decide whether I should register this time to participate in a district level election or wait to register later on to participate in the national election. That is not your decision to make. Your job is to make it possible for me to register.
When he spoke,
whether I register,
his emphasis has been the sanctity of the electoral roll,
yes,
which has been a problem since we started compiling voters' register.
We will come to that. In fact, the sanctity of the electoral roll is a concern that is not only confined to the Republic of Ghana. You know that. Even in other jurisdictions. Even democracies that we look up to for best practices. There is always a challenge. So the point I'm making is that I am not convinced, and I don't think any Ghanaian is convinced, hearing what Dr. Sribo Kweku is saying. Okay. It is not too late for the right thing to be done. All we are asking for is this. Expand it. Let the registration centers devolve from your district offices to the electoral areas. If you were to do that, you will remove many of these impediments. We are not saying that by doing so, all of the impediments.
Thank you. Let me take from Sule and Kofi. Can I take a question or two from you to Dr. Sribo Kweku to answer before he leaves us? Yes, beginning with you, Sule.
Thank you very much, Samson. Maybe not directly questions, but just quick reactions. The first is the important point Dr. Kweku makes about the sanctity of the voters' register. And I get the impression that when those of them at the EC talks about the sanctity of the register, they are looking at issues of avoiding double names, double registrations, and whether people's biometrics have been adequately captured and so on. But in my view, when you talk about the sanctity of the register, it is also about the questions around, are all those who have to be on the register on? That's part of the sanctity of the register. If they are not on, the question is why? Were they given the necessary opportunity to have their names on and they refused? And if not so, then why? I believe that is also about the sanctity of the register. If you have to have 2 million people on the register, and you have 1 million, and the 1 million is clean, their names are there, pictures are there, biometrics are there, and so on and so forth, we still don't have what we should have as a register. Now, the other point I want to make is, I hear Dr. Kweku re-emphasize and re-echo the point that, look, there's going to be another registration in 2024. This is to provide an opportunity for those who want to be part of the district level elections to be able to be involved. And when you listen to him quite carefully, it raises the point why sometimes we all complain about the voter turnout when it comes to the district level elections. Because it appears even he himself is making it look like, no, this is subservient to the national elections. There's no problem, we'll capture you for the national elections and so on. But the district level election is so fundamental to our democracy and to our governance. And it is important that we don't create the impression that, look, if you don't register for this, it's okay, we'll get you to register for the main elections. The final point I want to make is, look, the issues we are raising, Dr. Kweku, I believe that the EC could as well say, look, we are designating our regional centers. With the defense that you are putting up, what would have been different if you had said that it is the regional centers that people should come and register? Because your position would have been the same.
All right.
That, look, the Constitution says this and that. But Samson, just a second. Look at the people of Boku, where we all know there is this ongoing conflict, and it is so dangerous for people to venture out sometimes. What is the EC doing to ensure that people in the Boku enclave, for example, are able to get to the EC's offices, which is in the central part of Boku, where we all know safety is an issue for people to register? Or is it the case that because of the situation there, it is okay if people are unable to register? These are the questions that we are talking about.
Thank you, Suleiman. Yes, Kofi.
Right. So I want to ask Dr. Sribo Kweku, does the EC accept that compiling a register does not always mean creating a new register or registering people afresh? Does the EC accept that?
Kofi, they are not creating a new register. They are only adding to the existing list.
So my question stands. You see, the EC always goes out and says, okay, come and register. New people should come and register, come and check. My point is that if you read the Constitution in Article 45 and you read CI 91 in 22, the word used is compile. It does not tell the EC to always ask people to go to A or B to go and register. Now, compile means to extract an eligible group from a larger group. So I want to make the point, because you see, we will get to a point where if the EC keeps resisting this thing, we'll have to have a court to explain it. Because I'm making the point again that where a register exists, which has been properly created, and is a national register created by an authority set up for that purpose, then the law is clear. If you read the NIA law, it is clear that the NIA sets up a register, a national register, for other institutions to use. So my question stands, does the EC accept in principle that the requirement of the EC to compile a register does not always mean they should ask people to line up to register, whether to include their names or whatever? Do they accept that they can compile it from an existing register, for instance, from the NIA? I just want to clarify that.
Okay, but yeah, okay, thank you. So that's the question that's coming to you.
No,
45.
no. I want an answer so that I can follow up on it, because I think that's
45 says the Electoral Commission shall have the following functions: A, to compile the register of voters and revise it at such periods as may be determined by law.
46.
91.
46.
Compile. So do
46.
they accept that?
He says I
compile
should read
does not
46 to you. 46. Independence of the Commission. It says, except as provided in this Constitution or in any other law not inconsistent with this Constitution, in the performance of its functions, the Electoral Commission shall not be subject to the direction or control of any person or authority.
So
Yes, that does not mean they cannot use.
He's making a commentary after I've read. So listen to him.
there, our
No,
understanding.
wait. Samson, moderate this thing well. I have to ask a question. He has to answer. What is read is not an answer to my question. The issue of the independence of the EC does not mean, for instance, they cannot be audited. It does not mean that if you read the NIA Act 707, it says the NIA will create a national register, which other institutions will use.
Okay.
So I'm saying, if you are using a proper national register, it does not constitute an undermining of your independence.
All right, thank you.
My question still stands.
Thank you, Kofi.
Do they accept that the EC's compile requirement does not mean they have to always create a new register?
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's hear you respond to.
Our understanding about the compiling that he was talking about is that you have the total base of Ghanaians and pick the name from the total base of Ghanaians. It's not that somebody, and as the authority has compiled, I should go and pick. That's why I asked you to add that. For our understanding, NIA cannot impose their data on us. If we think that we can use their facility, fine. But it doesn't impose on us that we should use their data.
Yeah, but he's a citizen. The country is engaging in a lot of costs to produce a register of citizens, out of which you could easily, as it were, go and take a list from. So why double cost?
That's within it. So it's an economic issue that we are raising. But we have to look at it and say that when we do that, we can get what we are looking for. And us, our stakeholders, will agree. I can tell you, the first people who will kick against it is my brother sitting here.
But this is where we are getting to, is it not? We're getting to a point where you'll be relying on the national ID card.
We are using the card for identification.
For registration.
Exactly. So that to prove that you are a Ghanaian. That's what we're looking for. But not to copy their data.
Yeah. So you were supposed to have been registering, doing these exercises 2021, 2022. You didn't do them, and 2023. So that's a backlog, isn't it?
Yes. See, maybe I did not present my presentation well. We are not saying.
I have a small follow-up question.
Kofi, hold on. Yes.
We are not saying that we can't cover the 1.45 people. What we are saying that the facility we have put in place, by the time we end the 21 days, we'll cover 1.5, whatever, once the figures are available. But we know from experience that not all of them will come. So the number that will come will cover. But we are saying that if you are not going to use it for the election, then you can relax so that we cover those who are going to use it for the election.
But you also agree that between now and the elections, as in the general elections, not the district assembly elections, you're expecting at least 3 million Ghanaians on the roll.
No. Because
that's what the experts say.
No, I don't know where the experts are coming from. But from the statistical survey 2020, they're saying that 450,000 average, 18 every year. So if you multiply 450,000 by 4, it is less than 2 million. So I don't know where the 3 million is coming from. And you see something, Electoral Commission is concerned and pays attention to Article 42. Now, if you look at the whole of Africa, apart from Cape Verde, the total population size is 600,000. They are the only country which has the voter ratio to population of 56%. Ghana, we are 55%. So that tells you that we cover everybody who matters. So we are saying that now we are expecting about 1.35. But we know that what we have put in place, by the time we cover the 21 days, anybody who makes himself available will have been covered.
Interesting.
Then again, there's an issue of, I just want to put on record that it's not that all the people are saying we are not heard or we don't care. We care very much, but I said that we are combining the concern of the people and also against the sanctity of the register. We don't have enough time for us to, like we did in 2020, we need to pull out a lot of names from it. You are aware that even when just today, when I was coming, one of his guys called me that some people have invaded the place, so that there are people in the queue are all minors, so you've gone there to sack them. I thought that they should tell this officer that that's not the work of the person. If the person thinks that the people are minors, they should go through the process and challenge them. So the issue is that you may want to do that and go as many as you can, but you should also open your eyes and see intrusion from those who have already registered, those who are not 18 years, and those who are foreigners. So we are doing all these
But are you not better guaranteed of protecting the sanctity, removing minors and foreigners, if you took it closer to the communities than where they are coming 80 kilometers, 40 kilometers, 30-something kilometers to a center where they don't know each other, so they can't really object?
Decentralization starts from the districts. So those who are saying we should decentralize, going to this is a form of decentralization. 2, I was a region that time in a particular district, I wouldn't want to mention, sorry, in a region. In 2014, before the district level election in 2015, we went to the electoral race. I went to a place with my district officer, who was an indigent of that region. Then I saw the people in the queue. By my judgment, I think I read that they are too young. They don't qualify to be 18. So I called the agents of MPP and NDC to my place with the district officer. Why are you encouraging these people to register? What they told me was that you are looking at the people by their stature. But over here, we don't grow fast, so they qualify. And I will bring pictures of people who registered in 2020 for you to see whether by the which way we. Yeah. Then I think somebody was mentioning issue about voter turnout of this legislation. You need to be in the register before voter turnout comes. So if you are not a registered voter turnout doesn't come in at all.
Yeah. So the more reason you should facilitate.
No, I'm saying. So if you are not, it's good that we go by this and allow people to register, but don't bring voter turnout agreement.
The next issue.
The voter turnout agreement means that the people are already registered. So if you are not registered, we don't talk to you about the voter turnout issue. So I think that an issue about commissioners being impeached, whatever, I don't think we have gotten there. Because everything they are doing, to me, they are doing what is right in protecting and also encouraging people to register. We've made the facilities available. People should take advantage of it. We agree with the situation, but we have no choice.
Kofi Bentil is qualified to be a judge. He says if he were a judge and this came to him, he will sanction the removal of the officers for misbehavior. The law says misbehavior, and then is incompetence.
Not a judge.
I also have a
anyway, but the last one before you leave us, the public.
I'm not rational.
The public is looking at something and they say these optics are really bad for the commission. For a state institution that appears to be spiting the courts, this is not good. What do you say?
What has it done?
That you have been served with injunction applications and you are still going on with the process.
Have you seen it yourself? Or you've heard of it? Sitting here, I only heard that the lawyer was just served yesterday or so. So
no, that's the contempt application.
Even the first one, I don't be served on the commission. That's what I heard. And you see, at times in the media, you also sensationalize issues. that the people somebody going to serve and you are there covering those, and they were saying that they were not allowed in. They were allowed in. Call the bailiff. He was allowed in. The CCTV cameras would be there to show. So
why was he not able to serve?
But the issue that we are in exercise. Like right now, I'm eliminated from here. I'm going out and I will be out for 1 week. The commissioner, I don't think I will be served because I'm not the commissioner.
That's right. You are
the
not
commissioners were all, and at that time I know somebody, one of them was at Savelugu. They were all moving. Said that we don't stop what we're doing because we are coming to serve us. So when you come to meet us, and because of that, they wrote to lawyer Maneuver, who handled our recent Supreme Court case. And he gave him the power that, no, he should handle those issues whilst we are out doing our work. So nobody was run away. But I want to put on record that the bailiffs were allowed entry. They went there, but they couldn't meet the commissioners. That's why they couldn't serve them. So the story and the sensationalism from the joint that...
But the injunction process, they don't need personal service. So that one is easy. So that one, they serve it before they brought this one.
That's my information that nobody was served.
Oh, really?
That's my information, and I don't think my information be wrong.
Okay.
And I think you can talk to
okay. Kofi, sorry. Just a second. Kofi, do it that quick and we take a break. We have done, we're at 11 o'clock.
Yes. No, the EC continues to say that it has a responsibility to make sure it creates and cleans up a register for the credibility of the register.
Is it true or false?
Does the EC accept that the NIA is better set up to create credible registers and not the EC, because the EC is an elections commission. The NIA is a registrations authority. So in the pursuit of having a clean register, the EC is better off using the NIA because the NIA has more facilities to create, clean, and certify people's identification. Do they accept that?
Yes, but Kofi, we know one fact. The NIA cannot impose its data on the EC, which is clear. Professor Kenneth Tefa has been very clear about this. They cannot impose it. Now,
we are not saying that I'm not saying they should impose it. I'm saying if the EC is intent, if they want a clean and credible register, okay, if you know somebody can do a better job, they are not imposing it. You should rather go to that source instead of trying to do it yourself all the time after 30 years of doing it, where you do it every year and you still have problems. My point is, we've set up an NIA which has better facilities for creating identification.
Yes, Kofi, yes, that point has been made. And our money should not be wasted doing the same thing by various other institutions. The law that sets up the NIA says that the EC, SNIT, NHIA, GRA, all of them, they can access the information or data from NIA by application. So we must insist that we don't want the EC to waste our money further. Parliament must insist, if the EC goes to ask for money, that we are not going to give you money. Go take the data from the NIA. But unfortunately, you and I know that the MPs, the politicians, will resist.
Let's not make that excuse for the EC. Does the EC accept? Because that resistance from the EC leads us to spend over 100 million every 4 years doing the same thing and doing it wrong.
Kofi, I agree.
To force them to do the right thing.
You are absolutely right. We take a quick break, and when we return, we have two issues. We'll weigh which one we should deal with, or if we can deal with them a little briefly before we go. We're done with this subject. We have done up to the top of the hour and moving on. When we return, I'll read some of your messages to you. There are just too many of them. We'll be right back. This is Newsfile. I'm Samson, Lardy, Anyenini, and my guest who is leaving us is the Director of Electoral Services, Dr. Sribo Kweku.
And the judiciary is packed with NPP inclined judges because this government has carried out a deliberate policy of putting their people on the bench. It's more than 80 towards 100 and counting. He's packed the courts, and we know that they've packed the courts because they want to avoid accountability after they have left office.
Appointments to the lower courts, the High Court, and the Court of Appeal are done by the President exclusively on the advice of the Judicial Council. In the case of appointments to the Supreme Court, because of its unique position in our judicial structure, there are the additional requirements of the consultation of the Council of State and the approval of Parliament. in the overwhelming number of cases of justices designate to the Supreme Court, that approval has been given on a bipartisan basis. You can count on the fingers of a hand the number of justices designate whose approval meant less than unanimous consent. I've gone into this matter in some detail because of a new concept that has been recently introduced into our public discourse by no less a public figure than the fourth president of the Fourth Republic, the perennial NDC presidential candidate, John Dramani Mahama.
You're welcome back. And my guest still with us on the show, Dr. Clement Sabah-Sapak, MP Bulso South and Deputy Ranking Member Education Committee and Member Public Accounts Committee. Suleiman Ibrahima is Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Kofi Bentel is lawyer and Senior Vice President, Imani Africa. I share some of your views and then we will see how far we can go. We'll begin with the matter of the judges, which we postponed last week. Daniel Kabong Salifu says that the more the EC explains itself, the more ridiculous they appear. If the locals at the polling unit cannot affirm the credibility or ensure the credibility of the register by identifying and restricting foreigners, how can an EC officer at the district office do that? The officer who doesn't know even the constituency. Wow. Okay, thanks for that. This one from Kofi Latte, Lysosome Latte, says that so if they open to the electoral area next year, wouldn't what they are preventing happen? Okay, so if eventually they intend to open the registration to the electoral areas, wouldn't what they are seeking to prevent now happen? That's what he's saying. This one's from Selikem Kobla. He says that he keeps talking about next year, knowing very well there isn't an election this year. At least it should be at the constituency level registration. Okay, some have said that the EC can actually consider some expansion, even not to all the 6,000 electoral areas. Etonam Teria says, ask the commission whether they have chanced on the Jean Mensah stake when she was an NGO. Okay, sure you joined us late or have not been paying attention as much. Then I've got a tall list of your messages here that's also asking questions as well. Kweku Wisdom says the commissioner is basing his arguments on lots of assumptions. Your work is simple. Make it easier for eligible individuals to register. Either they will vote in the district assembly or not is not for you to determine. At Coco says NIA registered people in communities. Did that compromise the sanctity of the card? If Kofi, what's the guarantee that the EC officers are putting people at polling stations closest to them? Perez Ewonam, why is the EC rep on the show talking as if people shouldn't care about the district level elections? The EC cannot and must not be allowed to pick and choose which elections citizens should partake in. They have no such right. Tanko Osman, Dr. Kweku, in summary, says their intention is not to register everyone who attained 18 years in the past 3 years. Your right to vote is being violated with pride. William NB says, so is he telling us the EC has decided to determine the number of eligible voters who should partake in the district level elections? Kojo Senyo, how does Dr. Srebo suggest to distinguish those who want to vote in the district level elections this year from those who will want to vote next year. Lots of questions there. If this one can be managed properly to capture many more, why bring to bear an extension that could have been dispensed with and at extra costs? What more detailed registration is Dr. Kweku talking about? At what cost? Why put people through this? Is he and the rest of the EC deputy commissioners aware of what challenges people are facing, particularly in a broke economy? Interesting questions. Kofi Adams says the EC can rely on the NIA card for registration, but the NIA data to extract in compiling a voter's register. A Ghanaian may register in Accra for an NIA card using his or her residence in Accra for that purpose, but will want to register to vote in his or her hometown in Bulsa South. The EC cannot sit in their offices to determine where a particular voter wants or qualified to be registered as a voter. The qualification for Ghana card doesn't include residing in a particular place for a number of months to qualify, but for voter registration, you need to prove residence for a minimum of 6 months in the polling station to register. Thanks, Kofi Adams. And he says again, the NIA registration does not make provision for agents to challenge registrants. Okay, but we know that it's rather a superior process in the vouching process. This one from Yakubu Ibn Chambers. We haven't heard from you in a long time. He says, educate me on why there has always been a friction between what is written in the law books and strict application and compliance. What can't laws be meticulously applied and followed in this country? Why do we wax lyrical with selfish political interests in this country? Who is wrong in the case of the EC and a section of the public regarding the limited registration exercise? Can the public have a universal resistance or acceptance of another of actions of state institutions for once? Okay, just questions. All right, thank you. And then this one, very interesting one, says that now that the EC has confirmed that their lawyers have been served with the processes, are they still continuing? If they want to be law-abiding, are they not supposed to stop as we have been educated? Thank you. Frank says, so is there nobody around the EC to tell them in the face that their persistence in transigence does not build good faith and a threat to consensus building? NIA is a creature of law for the sole purpose of identifying Ghanaians, just as the EC. The NIA is funded by the taxpayer. The most logical and most cost-effective way of compiling voters' register is to rely on NIA data where there are gaps. Mop up using limited registration. Why do we behave as if God created our sense of reasoning differently from our counterparts in advanced democracies? It is sad. Okay, thank you. Sorry, I can imagine you will appreciate that I should end the text messages here. NIA registration law makes provision for a challenge process. So that claim is actually not true. The NIA registration process makes provision for a challenge process. You are on Newsfile. It is your most authoritative news analysis platform. And Newsfile is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. MTN everywhere you go, Ashashi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert and Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 years. Giroplus, where Giroplus goes, water flows. Water tank, they are responsible for that. DBS Industries, roofing, Papa Fie, my way. Dial *165# on MTN to join. Syntex tanks, it's strong, it's tough. Flamingo paints, simply superior. Snit seed, self-employed enrollment drive. It's your future, so own it. Best Brain publication. Tomorrow, education today. So we will, because we have we have done so long a time without doing a break, I need to take this break. We'll be right back. All right. Thank you very much for staying with us. This Newsfile is your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Now, let's get to ask questions about what John Mahama has been saying. And he also has received some responses from the President, Attorney General, the Ghana Bar Association President, former CJ, Sophia Kufu, and many others say that what John Mahama is propagating is dangerous. The question we are asking on Newsfile is that those who are chastising him, are they simply playing the ostrich? Or he rather is on a political smear campaign against the judiciary? And I began my introduction by quoting for you a publication research from the US, where about almost 40 of the states, the appointment process for the judges includes elections, partisan elections. People must determine by their parties who should be, if you are winning in a particular state, you can know that you will be able to get, and which party's person or person sponsored who wins the head judge kind of job determines how their policies are able to get to make way. And this quotation is this, quote, "At both the state and federal levels, judges are increasingly seen as nakedly partisan." That's in the US. "Determining cases not based on the law, but the policy outcome their side prefers." That's their side, Republican or Democrat. "In this regard, there's the possibility that the judiciary is returning to a 19th century standard where judges were widely viewed as partisan actors or nothing more than politicians in robes," end quote. Question is this our reality too? Or the NDC and John Mahama are just simply being sour losers? When they lose matters in the court, then they decide that this is the way to treat the judges. Let me begin with Kofi Bento, and I will also share with you what CJ Justice Aban in 2004 had to say, so that we bring some perspective to the discussion that we are having. He had to caution judges in this country, and he said, "As judges, our role lies in the proper and honest adjudication of disputes arising out of the elections." Then he said, he actually cautioned them against, he says, "We must steer the middle course and deliver justice according to law. It is by living in accordance with our judicial oath and having sufficient command of electoral laws and handling electoral disputes with honesty, efficiency, and speed that our roles as judges can promote the healthy development of our democracy." He was simply telling the judges not to be partisan, and he was plain. In due course, I'll quote a few more of the things that he had to say in 2004 in the circumstances. Kofi, the GBA conference, once again, the NDC people predicted that the GBA conference will be a platform that will be offered the President, the Attorney General, to once again, as it were, lambast John Mahama. And remember, this is the second time that he's making these comments. What do you say?
Do you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you now.
So it's unfortunate that that prediction came true. I think that even if it had been offered in that sense, the politicians should have risen above it. But again, I think the GBA should be more careful about how we position our platforms so that they will not be used or abused. Sometimes when you invite somebody to speak, you can actually have some sort of arrangement or agreement with them on areas that they will not go into, just to keep the platform sacrosanct. So it's unfortunate. Somebody will say, well, politicians will do what politicians will do, but I think it was not the best. I think we can use the platform better. All that being said, look, we live in this country. The realities are clear to all of us, and whatever each party is saying, we can all see through it and take the middle ground. As far as I am concerned, the central issue is the politicization of the judiciary. I have a basic point that I think should be made. Those of us who are lawyers practicing in this country, especially those who have had some experience or some exposure to other jurisdictions, will tell you honestly that our judges most of the time rise above the fray. They rise above their own partisan inclinations. Most of our judges rule to the best of their ability according to the law, the facts, and the evidence in front of them. That said, it is not sensible for anybody to suggest that a judge who is a human being living in a society is not affected by what is going on in that society. Okay, judges vote. They have political affiliations and all of that. So when you marry that with the first statement that I've made, that regardless of those, the overwhelming majority are able to rise above those things. And when the facts are placed before them, more often than not, they rule according to the law and the evidence. It is also okay for the politicians to have worries. And as far as I'm concerned, the observation or the statement that President Mahama made was proper. It was necessary for a person of his standing seeking to become president to make that observation and ask the kinds of questions he asked. Nobody should hold it against him when he suggests that this may be a problem. Of course, if he puts a political spin on it and says that the opponent or the other party is appointing judges, who believe in their political, whatever, and therefore for me, I think it's a matter of course. You don't expect that they will appoint people who believe in your, political, who belong to your political persuasion. So for me, that is not a problem. But what we should be saying, when you compare that to the extreme situation of the US that you have read, is that we need to get to a point where, regardless of their political affiliation, we are getting judges or putting judges in place who will rule and continue to rule according to the law and then the evidence before them. So in a sense, it's a good conversation to have. Let us not pretend that it is not necessary, it is necessary, but let us continue to work towards the higher virtues so that we'll continue to have the kinds of justices that we have. In recent years, there has been cause for worry. There has been a lot of cause for worry. The 7 zeros were very difficult for some of us to appreciate. Even if you agree with somebody, sometimes your reasons are different. And we've all read, dissenting opinions and other opinions, whether in agreement or in dissent, where very interesting points are made. This 7-0 I concur is worrying. And then when Mr. Dovelebo was run out of office unconstitutionally and unlawfully, some of us ran to court. When the politicians fail us, when all the systems fails us, it is the judges we look up to do justice. When we ran to court in a matter that was timeous, it was time-barred, there was necessity to act in a certain quick fashion. The Supreme Court, just in complicity, decided not to take up the matter, waited for 2 years, let the damage be done, and then after 2 years, they give us a ruling that says that the president acted unlawfully. We think that those things do not work well when we start discussing issues of the partisanship of our judges. So I think it stands that the judges themselves must show that regardless of whatever political affiliation or bias they may have, it does not feature that much in their judgments. I do believe they are capable. They've done it in the past. I believe they can do it in the future. The discussion is all proper, but let us keep it within bounds, and make sure that everything we do works to that virtuous circle where even when you know the political affiliation of a judge, you can go before him trusting that he will rule based on the evidence, the facts, and the law in front of him.
Professor Stephen Kweku-Asare did this research, a research paper on, judicial accountability, the checking the performance of the judiciary. And I'll just read a part of what he had to say from his research. And in that document to you at page 100, he speaks about accounting for judicial independence and accountability. And he says that structurally, Ghana's constitution has a usual independence and accountability safeguards for the judiciary. So structurally, there's no problem. But he has a problem at a certain level, which I'll share with you. He says, first, judicial power is vested exclusively in the judiciary. Second, neither the other branches of government nor any person is permitted to interfere with judges exercising their judicial power. Third, all organs of the state are obliged to offer reasonable assistance where necessary to protect judicial independence. Fourth, judges are immune from suits for acts or omissions while exercising judicial power. Fifth, judges cannot be dismissed except on stated grounds. Sixth, judges' compensation cannot be reduced during their tenure and are guaranteed a pension equivalent to a sitting judge. Finally, the judiciary is self-accounting in financial matters. But here is where he brings some problem. And let's see what your view is. There appears, however, to be two structural weaknesses. First, the Constitution does not place a ceiling on the number of Supreme Court justices. This gives the president, with a majority in parliament, the power to pack the court. Second, the Constitution provides that the Supreme Court shall be duly constituted for its work by not less than 5 Supreme Court justices. A curious convention has developed that allows the Chief Justice to decide the justices that hear a case, subject to meeting Article 128, Clause 2, minimum requirement. This cherry-picking power, which is nowhere to be found in the Constitution, undermines the structural foundation of the judiciary. So he says, and you have heard people talk about in the course of the week, there are judges who are there, they are never empaneled for some political cases, and they are making, these suggestions that it is deliberate. What do you say? He refers to the fast-track case where when the government was losing, Kufuor immediately brought in a new judge, Parliament approved him, and then they took him there, and that judge's decision made the difference. So clearly, he says you can't run away from the fact that these things they happen.
I totally agree with him, and honestly, he's right. The thing is this, it is not too smart, to be surprised by something that should not surprise you. So where is the surprise when politicians act in ways that are lawful in their own interest? So for instance, what President Kufuor did, he acted in ways that were lawful, but clearly in a self-serving way, and it was wrong. He abused his power for his own selfish gain. It was wrong. Now, when these things happen, then we look at them and then take the lessons and make the necessary amendments. To that extent, I am all for capping the number of of justices at the Supreme Court, for instance. I am all for that. That is number one. Number two, I don't think it is proper for anybody to be the one to select judges for any case, including the Chief Justice. So whatever was done in the past, there may have been a good reason for it. But when you give all that power to one person, don't be surprised when they exercise it in ways that, further their personal, selfish, or partisan goals.
So how should it be done? How should it be done? Are you agreeing with him that if there are 9 judges and there's a constitutional or political matter that comes, all of them should sit, nobody should decide who it is?
Samson, we can discuss the pros and cons of how it should be done, but one, there are many ways of doing it. The one way it should not be done is to allow one person to pick. There are, lots. They can cast lots There are computer systems that even select the judges themselves. They can, based on their speciality, they can agree that some of these cases I'm interested and that kind of thing. But when the case lands, there must be an objective way of selecting the panel, which is not subject to any one person. They can actually choose to vote amongst themselves. There are several ways, and I think these are the things that maybe as judges, as lawyers, the GBA and then the judges, we can develop a system. But the one thing we know is wrong is to let one person decide and pick. All right. So those things we can fix. As to the different ways it can be done, the simple thing is that it must be objective. It must not be subject to one person. All right. So to that extent, I think Kwekwaza is right. What we must appreciate is that there are things that keep honest people honest. And there are things structurally that even make honest people dishonest.
Okay.
When you have a structured system where it doesn't pay to be honest, you have a vicious cycle. People become worse than they are. So we need to fix some of these problems.
He also refers to the Williamson case, in which he said the Williamson case involved the disqualification of an opposition NDC MP. 4 recent appointees of President Kufuor, Afre, Bado, Chum, and Brobe were empaneled along with Justice Sophia Kufu, who incidentally was the lone dissent on the issue of whether the Supreme Court had jurisdiction to hear the substantive issue. It cannot be seriously argued that the 4 recent appointees lacked independence in fact, but a strong argument can be made for the absence of independence in appearance. Do this give reason for justification for the comments that President Mahama made?
That particular example does not give reason for the comments or justification, but I insist that President Mahama was in proper stead.
But Kofi, why not? Why not? There's a case involving an NDC MP, and then the incumbent, the governing party, the government appoints fresh judges, and 4 of those judges are on that panel. Whatever the impression is that whatever you do, you can't, the one person who is not seen to be tainted cannot win against 4. And that is what played out. That's what he's saying.
I totally understand. And I'm saying that a lot of that is properly based, which is why I'm saying President Mahama's comments were proper. It's just alerting us to the fact that we have situations where some of these things will raise eyebrows, properly so. But Samson, some of the people you have mentioned, Justice Brobe and co, and whatever it is, I will not for any reason believe that Justice Brobe is afraid of anybody, or for any reason he's going to make some rulings based on political affiliation or whatever it is. And that is not to say they don't have it or they cannot be swayed. My point is that in this country, overwhelmingly, our justices rise above that. But you can have situations where, given the structure, they are made more susceptible to make some of these decisions, especially when they have a lot of political control. We should not be surprised by things that should not surprise us. Okay. What we should be doing is moving towards a situation where more and more and more, it is not likely that these things will happen. So it's a useful discussion to have, but we should not have it in a way that destroys the system. I still have a lot of faith in our judicial system, but I'm saying in recent years, that faith has been shaken based on what people have done. Okay, so we need to work out ways where it is not just an honor-based system where people will be called upon on their own honor to do the right thing, but that structurally they will do the better things. For instance, we should change the situation where the CJ appoints people who go. I will go as far as to say we should even change the way we appoint Supreme Court justice. I believe that the legal system as a whole should have more of a say in selecting or creating that shortlist.
Thank you very much, Kofi. We'll be right back after this. And last week I asked the question: if you take the cases that go to the court, how many are political cases, giving reason why we should be having this discussion? How many of the cases are political cases? We'll be right back. You're welcome back. Suri, I can give you a minute, and then I get to Dr. Park. In that article I'm talking about, he concludes by saying the qualitative summary of household, business, and political perceptions of corruption show that the structural independence foundation erected by the Constitution has probably drowned in the ocean of decisional independence. It's what the former president is talking about, fair, and it's what the President Akufo-Addo, the Attorney General, and the GBA President, what they are telling him, is that not what we should be doing?
Well, Samson, I think that we need to admit that increasingly every sector of our society, every state institution is getting quite partisan, and that must be worrying to all of us. And for the judiciary, I often say that when we lose the judiciary, that will be the end of our democracy and perhaps the end of our progress. And so it is important that we protect the sanctity of the judiciary. But the protection of it is not to criticize it when we see things going wrong. If indeed what we are observing is increasing appointment and packing the courts with judges who are inclined to a particular political tradition, we need to say it, just as it is said in the US and I believe elsewhere. I think my only problem with the former president's statement was to say that what we are observing is wrong. And when I get the chance to come to power, I would also do the same wrong thing. I think that is what I find fundamentally wrong. But for people to accuse him of raising the question about how judges maybe of a certain political orientation are getting appointed to the courts, I think that is fair. We need to have real debate about that. If you remember in 2018, I think, the revered Professor Raymond Atuguba did a study looking at about 100 cases that he classified as political cases. And at the end, the conclusion was that when you look at the cases and the judges who sat on the cases and who appointed those judges, the conclusion was you find that the judgments are always tilted towards, the individual judges rule based on the inclinations to the persons who appointed them. And so we cannot rule it out that is not a problem. We need to talk about it, and that is the only way we can protect the sanctity of the judiciary. But to condemn him and say, oh, that is not true, and so on and so forth, I think that we also need to be fair. President Akufo-Addo perhaps knows very well that, he's appointed Justice Jehu, if that is the name, who told Parliament at the vetting committee that, he resigned from the party in 2020. What does it mean to say that I've resigned from a political party just about a year before I got appointed on the Supreme Court? What is happening within the police? Assuming this Commissioner Mensah had been appointed as IGP, and then people say, it is MPP inclined people who have been appointed to lead the police.
Okay.
People would know it's not true. Nobody knows about his affiliation. But I believe that given the position of the former president, there are certain things that he'll be privy to that we may not be privy to. But as I said, I don't think that the solution is to say that when I come, I will also...
The president has answered, and within the fraternity, it's clear that judges have retired and so on, and the Lord just falls on him. He's just been lucky, so to speak, that he should fill the gap, and he's doing it. And it's the Judicial Council that come together and say these are the people, even though we know that those selections are not bound, nominations are not binding on him, according to the court's own decision, that the advice is not binding. How can you blame him? And Raymond Atuguba, what he did, people say that may be allowed in America, but not in Ghana.
Well, Samson, let's be honest and truthful. And I am happy that my co-panelists have all affirmed the fact that what John Mahama said is acceptable, and that it was well intended.
Except what he wants to do.
Well, if you read the text of what he said critically, it is not conclusive. He was admonishing, quote unquote, NDC inclined lawyers to prepare themselves and get themselves in readiness. Prepare.
So they should aspire to get
Yes, aspire. So it's not automatic.
To balance out.
It is not automatic. But you see, we will be playing the ostrich if we deny that the concerns raised by President John Dramani Mahama, our flag bearer, are not legitimate. And I mean, my good brother just gave you the example of NS Jehu. He's not the only person. We can give several examples of people who overtly are MPP inclined, some who have held positions in the MPP who have been appointed.
Doesn't matter. You
by
have been showing videos of people who were even on radio stations campaigning sort of for MPP who have become judges. But the truth also is that it is possible for one to be not to be neutral but be impartial.
Yes, that is possible. But you see, when you look at some of the circumstantial pieces of evidence that we have,
right, in
terms of the way politically exposed cases are handled. I mean, look at the e-levy issue, for example, where Ablakwa, Haruna, and Ayarga went to court.
So
it has not been called. You know, I'm also in court with my colleague Defiamako.
Okay.
On this Professor Ntiamwa Bwedu, report.
We have obviously
we've not heard from the Supreme Court yet.
Right. We have
so there are many examples
we have obviously run out of time
to ascertain and to confirm that.
Thank you very much to all.
Mahama is in the right.
The Habitat EcoBank Joy News Habitat Fair is going on in Tema. The third mini clinic of the Joy News EcoBank Habitat Fair is showing, showering attendees with lots of goodies and discounts. This year, the event is making its debut appearance in the vibrant city of Tema. A diverse range of vendors is present, offering everything from land sales to pre-built houses and all the essentials for creating a comfortable home. If you have been considering attending the fair, there's even more incentive now, as vendors in Tema are offering generous discounts to those who make purchases. Visit the fair at the Tema Metropolitan Assembly today and tomorrow, Sunday, for all the goodies. My outfit, as always, is by Habil Scooter. You can reach them on 0200 84 1988. Have a good afternoon.